This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Would you wear the same shoes for every occasion? Or rock the same outfit 7 days a week? Of course not. Your style is better with options. Your investments could be too. SIBO Index options give you access to various contract sizes, global trading hours, and potential tax advantages. That's a good look for any portfolio. If you're ready to invest in style, head to betterwithoptions.com. There are risks associated with SIBO company products. Review the disclosures and disclaimers at sibo.com/US_disclaimers.
She went through a lot when they got divorced. So I'm picturing my ex could act the same way, and I'm really scared about that.
Welcome to How To, the show where people come to us with their toughest questions, and we find an expert to give them guidance. I'm Carvell Wallace. I think we can all agree that breakups are hard. Even amicable splits can leave us with hurt, pain, maybe even lingering resentments. But if you ask anyone who's an expert on the topic, they will likely tell you the same thing. I know it hurts, but it's time to move on. Like, sure, feel your grief, sure, learn your lessons, but the more pain there is, the more important it is to accept the loss and move on with your life. But what if you can do that, but your ex-partner cannot? What if your ex is someone who continues to try and spark conflict and confrontation with you no matter what you do? How do you move on from that? And how do you find a new relationship when your old one is still screaming for your attention? Well, that's the problem faced by today's listener, Guillermo.
I'm a single father of two beautiful kids, my daughter 18 and my son 10. And I met somebody really nice that I wanted to build a future again. But I'm really scared of my ex destroying my future.
Guillermo met his ex years ago when they were working for the same company. They dated for a little bit, and then she got pregnant with their daughter.
She told me right off the bat, you don't have to marry me. You don't have to be part of this child's life. You can just run away. I came from a broken family myself, so I figured that I need to give it my best try and give this kid a decent family.
So they got married and started raising their daughter together.
We were fine. It was going just like a normal American dream. I was building my family, and we bought a house together, and everything's beautiful.
But then something happened that had Guillermo reevaluating things.
She started working again. She met somebody. She had an affair with a coworker, and she decided to move out, and she left here with my daughter, and she got her own place, and I was terrified. I didn't know what to do at that point. I was like, she just destroyed the whole family in matter of seconds. She blamed me. She said that I wasn't paying attention to her, that I wasn't. Yeah, I probably take fault for that too. Yeah, but an affair is not a mistake.
The affair was hard for Guillermo. At first, like many of us, he was willing to stay in the relationship to try and work it out. But then he began to witness what he considered manipulative tactics.
I noticed that when she was having problems at work with coworkers, she will lie to the boss so she can get the upper hand. So when things then go her way, and losing that control, she will have revenge on you. She will make your life miserable.
And has she done that with you?
Yeah, she did. Like if she didn't get something her way when we were together, she will cut something that I liked, or she will, do something that I didn't understand, like what was going on. Like I didn't have no idea, like,
I see.
And my wife, so I always forgive her, and I started blaming myself for it. Like maybe I'm the problem, and I started seeking help and going to therapy and going to counseling and all that, and so I didn't know what else to think. I didn't know that I was married to a narcissist person, and when she loses control, it's horrible for me. It's a nightmare.
The divorce was not easy. It dragged out into a multi-year battle. Guillermo says his ex tried to manipulate the kids by spreading rumors about him, and he admits that it got to him, and he started using drugs to cope, which in turn gave his ex more ammunition to use against him. It was ugly. Their daughter, who was an adult now, decided to live with him. They have a court-ordered schedule for their 10-year-old son, but they ultimately leave it up to their son to decide when he wants to go with his mother and when he doesn't. It's not perfect, but for Guillermo, it's good enough. Now that he's out of the thick of the divorce drama, he finds himself looking to the future, which includes finding a partner.
I made a lot of changes in my life. I learned my mistakes, and after being divorced now for 8 years, I think I'm ready. And I talked to my daughter before I started seeing somebody. She actually thanked me for that because her mom did not do that. As soon as we were going through the divorce, she started dating somebody. Then she brought him into the house with the kids, and the kids had no idea. So I did what was right. So my daughter has met my new girlfriend, and they get along really well. She likes her.
This girlfriend is someone Guillermo is pretty serious about. He sees a future with her, so naturally she's been around more, which has put his ex on high alert. You see, Guillermo works as an auto mechanic, which means that sometimes he has different cars in his driveway as he repairs them. And sometimes this alone has ignited conflict with his ex.
My ex came to pick up my son, and I was working on my coworker's car in the driveway, and then she started screaming, "Who's that B word out on the driveway? Who's in the house?" And I'm like, "Please settle down. Nobody's here." I told her, "Just please go away. Don't create any drama here in my block, because I don't do that to you. When you have somebody over there, I don't create that drama, and please go away." Imagine if I had my new girlfriend in here and then she started screaming like that and that in the driveway. That's a problem. Basically, she just wants to keep control of my life. So now that I'm with somebody new, I'm afraid of that she will sabotage it. She will try to talk bad about me or catch her somewhere or attack her. I don't know if it's even possible that she could be attacked physically. I don't know. I'm really scared.
How much have you talked to your new partner about what your experience with your ex is and kind of try to prepare them for what they might be?
We have similar pasts. She went through the same thing as I did. So she's familiar with all that. I didn't tell her what my ex right now she's, doing or whatever like that, because I don't want to scare her away. And that's my biggest fear right now. She knows how she is, but she doesn't know how she's been acting lately.
So today on the show, moving on after a divorce, which means protecting your peace even when your partner is seeking conflict and preserving the sanctity and safety of your new relationship. And after the break, we have the perfect expert to help Guillermo figure out his next move.
It's cold outside, and so this might not surprise you, but Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors. But did you know that indoor air can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air? Now you can breathe easy with Air Doctor, the award-winning air purifier that eliminates 99.99% of dangerous contaminants like allergens and viruses, smoke, gases, mold spores, and more. With Air Doctor, I know all of that stuff has been taken out of the air for me, and that the air that I, and most importantly, my kids are breathing, is as clean as it can be. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code HOWTO to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, plus a 3-year warranty, an $84 value for free. Get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com. airdoctorpro.com using promo code HOWTO. It's now 2025, and you might be wondering to yourself, how are you going to make this new year different from all the other years? Maybe you're dying to be your own boss or see if you can turn the business idea you've been kicking around into a reality, but you don't know how to make it happen. Well, Shopify is here to tell you how to make it become real. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sale. You can get your store up easily with thousands of customizable templates. No coding or design skills required. You don't even have to know what year it is, although that does help a lot. Their social media tools let you connect your channels and create shoppable posts and sell anywhere and everywhere people scroll on the internet. Shopify also helps with shipping and taxes and payments from one single dashboard. The best time to start your business is right now. And with Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Established in 2025 kind of has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/how-to. That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/how-to to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/how-to.
Some people think self-care is indulgent. You know firsthand that's a myth. And you know what else is a myth? That Discover isn't widely accepted. The truth is, Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard that right, 99%. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. What better excuse to take your self-care Sunday out of the house and into the occasional spa visit? It pays to Discover, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/credit card.
Before Bill Eddy co-founded the High Conflict Institute and wrote about 20 books, he was a family therapist, mediator, and lawyer. He saw firsthand how explosive, nasty nightmare divorces often involve what he calls high conflict personalities.
It's really to your credit, Guillermo, that you've gotten to the point you have. So you've been through your own counseling, you've ended up with custody of both your children for a while,
Yes.
that you have a shared schedule with your son, your daughter lives with you,
Yes.
and that you've really looked at what you can do. And that's what people really have to do in these situations. I think the best place to start is to talk about the personality pattern that you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Because in many ways, people with this type of personality are more predictable than the average person. And I also want to say, I can't diagnose somebody I've never met.
Yeah.
I'm a licensed therapist, but I can only diagnose people that I've gone through a diagnostic process with. So all I can say is if this is her personality, then in many ways, the behavior is somewhat predictable.
You may have caught that Guillermo called his ex a narcissist. Narcissism is a cluster B personality disorder in the DSM-5, meaning they may display emotional, dramatic behavior. But there's a difference between personality disorders and high conflict personalities. They can overlap, but high conflict personalities tend to blame others. They don't reflect, and they don't change. And as a reminder, it's important not to diagnose or put labels on others. Instead, you can notice patterns of social behavior and let it inform your reactions.
People tend to be born with one of these personalities or they develop in early childhood. So these are mostly patterns of behavior that have been evolving really over a lifetime and not something that they have a lot of control over. There's a whole group of people who don't want counseling because they see the problems as other people, not themselves, which means they don't change.
Yeah.
Another aspect of this personality is that they don't grieve and heal loss. As human beings, we have the ability to go through a few stages, typically a 5-stage process of grieving and healing loss. There's denial, then there's anger, then there's bargaining, then there's depression, then there's acceptance. Mm-hmm. Well, about 80% of people go through this, but the high conflict people don't, including the cluster B personality disorders. So this is part of what you're facing is someone who really doesn't have much control over themselves and really is stuck. They really are stuck years ago. They talk about the past all the time.
Yes.
And they have a hard time moving on.
You nailed it. That's exactly what's going on. They reflected everything on you, like you being the problem. They're fine.
it's all your fault. It's not just 90%, it's 100% your fault, is what they say. And yet it may be that 95% of the problems are their problems. And so that really confuses people. And one thing you said, Guillermo, is very common, is it makes the person in your position feel crazy. It's like things don't make sense. I don't understand what's happening. Hopefully, the more you understand about this personality, the less personal it becomes, that it's really not about something you did or could do that made someone act this way. This is what they came in with. And often that's a relief to know it's not about you. I do, 5 or 6 consultations a week like this, including 2 others today, that have so many similarities. And it's important for people to learn this is much more widespread than they realize. When I mention personality disorders, they're about 10% of the adult population. Maybe half of them have high conflict traits. And when I say high conflict, it's preoccupied with blaming others, all or nothing thinking, unmanaged emotions, and extreme behaviors. Sometimes they do things 90% of people would never do, like hanging around and bullying you years after the divorce. So the thing really to focus on at this stage, in many ways, is setting limits and imposing consequences, or SLIC, S-L-I-C. I call it SLIC solutions. And think about what are the limits that you need to set with her. So should she be coming on your property? Should she be yelling at you? Different things like this. What are the boundaries that you need to have to protect you, your kids, and this relationship?
Right.
But keep in mind, high conflict people disregard setting limits.
Oh, yeah.
And what that means is you have to also have consequences that follow if the limits are violated. So the average person, you say, hey, don't do this. They'll go, oh, okay. So you have to say, hey, don't do this. And if you do, this is what the consequence is going to be. And that you often need to say that when you set the limit, but you have to be prepared to impose the consequence. So it's special to each person, each relationship, but think about what are the consequences that I can impose with her so that she respects the limit more. Now, one place to look, is there any way in which you're helping her? Is there any favors you do for her? And at this point, there might not be. But sometimes people are helping out in different ways. They're generous and flexible in different ways.
I'm a car mechanic, and I never refused to help her out because, she carries my kids in the car.
I think that's the kind of thing reasonable people do, even after a divorce. But what you could say is, if you do this, I'm not going to be able to do that. Or I'm not going to be able to do that for another month or 2, or something or other. But thinking of things, it's like, please don't come to my house and raise your voice. If you do, I'm not going to be able to do this favor for you, which I'm happy to do, but not if you're treating me so disrespectfully.
Yeah.
That raises a question for me, which is that if we're dealing with high conflict individuals, a lot of people like that don't respond well to having limits and what they would perceive as threats. For them, that would be amping up the conflict, right? That would be like that. Now you're really attacking me in some way. And then that's when people start getting into like really intense retaliatory action. Is that a concern that you, in your experience, Bill, have seen? Or have you seen that people respond to this kind of thing?
I've seen both. So nothing is guaranteed. It depends really on the particular person, how severe it is. But these general principles apply. And there's something I should add to help protect against that possibility that Carvell just raised. And that is, do this in a very matter-of-fact way. Don't escalate emotionally with high conflict people, that you want to just be matter of fact, almost boring, is say, when you do that, I realize I can't do favors for you. So please don't do that, and I can continue to work on your car. So that you're not escalating the conflict emotionally. And she may respond and be prepared for her responses. She may say, you're threatening me, whatever. Say, no, I'm just simply telling you, if you do this, then that has to be the consequence. Just like I treat you with respect, you need to treat me with respect. So if you say it matter-of-factly like that, and you're not thrown off by her responses, because high conflict people don't like having limits set, and they often will try to manipulate you out of setting the limit. But if you're steady with that and say, no, this is really important to me. You can't come to my house and raise your voice. And if you do, I won't do that. And that's just natural consequences. Now, you don't have to say this to her, but it's just like with a 5-year-old. And in many ways, high conflict people are emotionally like 5-year-olds. So matter of fact, repetition, and staying calm often is the way to set limits and then to enforce the consequences.
Guillermo, is setting limits something that you feel comfortable doing in general in your life, and particularly with this person?
Yeah, I wanted to touch that base. I don't think she will care about the limits. Her goal is just to make me unhappy and see me miserable. And I don't want to go through the whole legal process again, or going to the extreme of actually getting a restraining order against her. For me, it will be like taking it to the max. I don't think that we should do that, but if it comes down to it, I might have to do that. I don't know.
Let me just mention that it's good to know in the back of your mind that could be one of the consequences if necessary. So it helps you know you're not helpless. It's more of a judgment call. Should I do this or should I do that? But I wanted to get into another area a little bit, and that is the emotional response. Is they like to get you emotionally upset. It gives them a sense of power.
Yes.
And one of the ways to diffuse that is to express just matter-of-fact emotions, that you're not going to be angry, you're not going to be sad, you're not going to be hurt. You're going to show her basically a boring face. And that's something to talk about your dating partner with, is just be just really boring if you can. It's something that's surprising. High conflict people want to get you emotionally engaged because that's where they are. And so they want you to feel sad, hurt, angry, depressed. All of that stuff is a reward to them.
Yeah, they feed off of that.
Exactly. It's like food to them. You're totally right. And so the less you give of that, the less you feed them, the less engaged that you are around their behavior. Often it gets boring and they go somewhere else. And that's often what happens in these cases. Eventually the person starts, sad to say, bothering other people.
Yes, I did notice that when she starts dating somebody, it's like a relief for me, because her attention's somewhere else now. She's not focused on me. So I get to rest.
Exactly. And that brings up another aspect to this, and that is this is all about close relationships. So often other people don't see this behavior at all. They go, hey, this is a nice person, or respectful, maybe a highly successful person. But when you're in a close relationship is when this abusive behavior comes out.
This is one of the hardest parts for people to wrap their heads around. Because this behavior happens in intimate relationships and, at times, behind closed doors, others never see it. So it can be quite isolating. You can find yourself losing your grip on what's real and what isn't. Essentially, you become lost in their emotional vortex. That's why Bill Eddy recommends some very specific forms of self-talk.
But I also want to give you another encouraging tip with you and your new partner. And that is to each of you, think of 2 or 3 encouraging statements to tell yourselves to give you strength through this period of time. Like, it's not about me, or she can't hurt us, or I can't make her change her personality. Just a short phrase that you repeat to yourself that helps give you encouragement. Like if she's criticizing you and you're saying to yourself, this is not about me, this is not about me, it makes her voice not as loud. And we've done a lot with this in our trainings with people. And it surprised us. We knew encouraging statements were a good idea, but if they recite them to themselves when they're in the high conflict situation getting criticized, it makes the other person's voice quieter. It's amazing.
Guillermo isn't alone in this. His new partner also, unfortunately, has a very similar experience with their high conflict ex. And when we come back, we'll get into the advantages and disadvantages of being in the same boat. And we'll also talk about the kids caught in the crossfire. Stay with us. Science and tech are constantly evolving, with new discoveries happening every week. On Curiosity Weekly from Discovery, make sense of some of the biggest questions and ideas shaping our world. Each week, unpack breaking science and tech news with expert guests who make it all make sense. You'll learn things like how neuroscientists are studying TikTok and your social media habits to see which chemicals are being released in your brain to make you so obsessed, or why clean beauty products and dupes wouldn't exist without cosmetic chemistry. In one episode, they'll cover analytic science so you can answer the question, what is the algorithm, really? Also, did you know you could fly from Florida to England on a plane using recycled plastic jet fuel, and that AI can now read hieroglyphs from Egyptian pyramids? Curiosity Weekly will dive into that too, along with how there are robots that can appear to feel pain. So cultivate your curiosity and get smarter about the world around you by tuning in every week. Listen to Curiosity Weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
Before we get back into the episode, we've been sharing updates from previous guests on the show. Last year, we did an episode called How to Say What You're Thinking. Our listener, Shannon, struggled with public speaking, something she wanted to address before she became a minister. In her note, she said that she was thankful to be on the show, and leaving the conversation, she felt like there was a place for listeners and observers in every conversation, which she feels is her strength, and that it is okay to take time formulating a response, or to not even have one at the time. Also, recently, she was ordained. Huge congratulations, Shannon. We'll link to Shannon's episode in the show notes. If you have something to say but just can't quite get it out, send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001, and we might have you on the show. We're back with Bill Eddy of the High Conflict Institute and Guillermo, who wants help dealing with his ex. Guillermo, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you describe a little bit some of the feelings that happen for you internally when you are confronted with this ex? Whether it's that you're like kind of lying in bed thinking about what you're afraid of, or whether you're actually like in conflict with them, they're standing outside, they're yelling at you, whatever it is, what does that feel like to you internally?
Now, the new me, I try not to think that I'm blaming myself. It's all on her. It's her issue, and I try to keep myself centered, and I try not to let her bad language or her bad behavior get to me, because like I said, she feeds off of this and she wants to see my reaction. The old me, I would engage in it and we'll start getting into it, and never ended. My only problem is that I feel terrified because after my girlfriend, she said to me, she ended up putting a permanent restraining order on her ex, where he can't call her nothing, like just completely. And I didn't really want to take it to that extent because I have my son with her. But my new girlfriend, she mentions that, she goes, "Do you think if we move in together, we can have problems with your ex? I mean, are we gonna?" She goes, "I'm kind of scared if she starts acting like my ex. We're gonna have an issue here." She goes, "I don't want to go through that again."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I need to handle this quickly and the best possible. But I'm terrified about that because I don't know what's coming. I really don't know.
Yeah. So in this case, the fact that your current partner has experience with this isn't, in this particular way, isn't necessarily something that makes it easier. It's something that makes it harder because this can be re-triggering for her.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that you should anticipate that and have plans for, if she does A, what should you do?
Yeah.
If she does B, what should you do? And that you jointly discuss this so you feel like you're on the same page, that this is a problem that you're working together on, so it isn't like a burden on you or you pressure her not to be upset, is to have some ways to cope with, hey, if she's upset about it, she can always talk to you. If you're upset about it, you can always talk to her. And you're also have an agreement that you're not going to talk about her more than, 10 minutes a day or something like that, so that you keep some limitations on that. I think it may be conceivable, if necessary, that this is something that you would go back to court about, to get her to stop harassment or stop contact. There's a lot of co-parents that have a restraining order against one of them, and yet you can have a shared parenting arrangement, and that's really the only connection you have is your 10-year-old son. Yes. That she has any rights to be involved with. And you can still have that. People have exchanges at the McDonald's or something, and otherwise there's no contact, or that there's strong things you can do if you have to do. Because the courts are very concerned about people's lives being separate and not escalating, especially into violence after a divorce.
When you're thinking about options and reactions, Bill says to keep in mind that arguing doesn't work, nor does trying to give the high conflict person insight into their behavior, confronting them and arguing about the past. Again, just be boring. Calmly focus on what to do now, what the limit is, what the consequence is, and now we're done.
I think the more you can see yourselves as a team and talk about that, and understand this is something you can get through. And I've had many cases where at the beginning, yes, the other person kind of escalates, but that, let's say you may have a 4 to 6 month period of her adjusting to this, and then, it should reduce some. And I'll bet you that there's been some reduction since your initial separation over the years, even though it's not complete. And I guess I want to ask you, have you seen some reduction in her contact or energy?
Yes. I didn't know that was going to start elevating again or escalating by me seeing somebody, or, start me dating again.
Yeah. Well, one thing to know, if she has a narcissistic personality, is they really come and go. They have a hard time sustaining a constant level of activity, that they're much more erratic. And so, the good news is there's going to be periods where there's less engagement. The bad news is, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there might be a flare-up. But generally, over time, it diminishes.
If you can, try to anticipate potential flare-ups or escalations and think through what you're going to say or what you're going to do. That pre-planning can be very useful and can even rescue you in the moment when the emotional bullets are flying and you find yourself in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode.
Another thing that I want to do mention this, that also very concerning to me, is that my son hasn't met my new girlfriend, but my ex is aware of my new girlfriend because of my son. He gets interrogated every time he goes back home with her. He hasn't even met my new girlfriend, and he already doesn't like her. Mom has been telling him, what are you going to call her mom? What are you going to leave your mom? Like trying to wash his brain and
Right.
that behavior or of adding bad stuff to his head. So that's a problem too.
Well, there's a few things to consider here. One is, in general, a lot of us as mental health professionals recommend that you wait at least 6 months before you introduce a dating partner to the child. And it sounds like you're way over 6 months. And you've been separated and divorced for
8 years.
Going on
8 years.
8 years. Yeah. So first of all, one of the things I want to give you is a sense of confidence that what you're doing is totally okay, totally appropriate, totally legal, totally expected, totally understood. And so you don't have to be defensive about it. What I would suggest is that you ease your son into getting to know her so that he doesn't meet her on Friday and she moves in on Saturday. That it helped to think of fun activities that he can be part of with you and her, and maybe your daughter, so that he can kind of get to know her. One of the things about the parental alienation issue is what happens is when children hear the story of dad from mom who's engaged in alienating behaviors, it's a negative story about dad. But it's not real dad. And so what, she tells him, your son, about you, I'm sure he hears stuff, but he doesn't absorb it because he has a real relationship with you. Likewise, with the woman you're dating, is as he gets to know her, he'll get to know the real her and see the difference between the story of her that's coming from the mother. And I've actually worked on cases where parents have used this language with their child. It's like, oh, that's the story that mom gave you about me. This is the real me. This is what I really think and what I really do. But there's a couple other tips I want to give you about your son and maybe both your kids. And that is what we call the 4 big skills for life. And the 4 big skills are flexible thinking, managed emotions, moderate behavior, and checking yourself. Like, am I using my skills or am I blaming other people? I've got to always take responsibility for myself. And talk about these skills as skills for life in ordinary conversations. So that, like, you may be at the store and you say, was that guy managing his emotions? No, he was yelling at the clerk. That's not a good thing. He didn't get what he wanted. Or maybe you're watching a TV show and somebody's using flexible thinking. Say, oh, did she get what she wanted because she used flexible thinking? And the key is you don't tell your child you have a high conflict co-parent. Instead, you teach them the 4 big skills for life, and they'll figure out, oh, mom's using unmanaged emotions right now. That's not a good thing. Or mom's not using flexible thinking, or she's using extreme behavior, that they'll recognize these aren't good behaviors and be able to separate themselves rather than absorbing them. And in many ways, the message to the kids is you should just be kids. You don't have to worry about this stuff. I'll take care of this, and you just be the kids.
How is that landing for you, Guillermo? Does that sound like, okay, I can put this into action, or is there a party that's thinking?
Yeah, because I don't want to. I never talked bad about their mom, so I want them to see it for themselves, just like my daughter did. It took her a while to see that, but I just grounded myself and I remained stoic about it and think about them and putting them first and not feeding them bad stuff and make them really see who I am, not what has been said about me. And
Right.
it took a while, 8 years, finally to my daughter to see it. And she goes, Dad, she told me, she goes, Dad, you were right. All the stuff that Mom was accusing you of doing, she's actually doing it to you. And that's what I saw. And you're not the bad person or the monster that she described of you.
Yeah, I was going to say that part of the question I have here, Bill and Guillermo, it sounds like this has been your experience, is that oftentimes when dealing with people like this, the conflict internally that we have is how much do we just let things play out, trusting that eventually things will work out in the way they're supposed to, as in everyone will know what the truth is, or how much do we try to control the person's behavior and actions so that they don't do things that make us uncomfortable. And I feel like that's always the balance, right? Like, it's like on the one hand, this person is like not operating, you don't have a shared reality with this person. And so part of you thinks that, well, if I can force them to see reality my way, then I'll be relieved from this discomfort. But then on the other hand, first of all, that's an impossible task and it just creates more conflict. But then on the other hand, there's this idea that like, maybe if I just keep my side of the street clean, that eventually things will become clear. Right? They'll become clear. And so I guess that it sounds like that's really the challenge, is like knowing which of those things to do. And it sounds like, Guillermo, what you're saying is that you find that eventually things do become clear, even if it's painful along the way.
It took me a while. Yeah, it took me a while. It was very suffering at the beginning to have the kids come over here when they were little, and they would treat me like crap. They will have no respect for me, and I just remained myself. And I said, just be doing yourself. You're doing the right thing. And I keep telling me that to myself, that I'm eventually, like I said, I have to be patient enough. And it took me a while to center that, because it's hard, but you have to be really strong about it.
Yeah. Let me reinforce that. It's a really good point, Carvell, that it's finding the balance, and each situation, each relationship with a high conflict person takes a while to figure out that balance. So that's normal. The thing is to just memorize this phrase, and that is choose your battles. Choose your battles is a real easy phrase to remember. And one of the ones that gets you to stop and think, is this one worth engaging or not? And it may be. In many cases, you do want to engage, but not in every case. And so, just always keep looking for that balance.
I just want to be happy. That's it. And my kids to be happy.
Yeah.
And I think you will be after going through the transition stage.
Okay.
So let her get to know your son, and then he'll come around. So know that there will be a hump to go over, but that you should get to the place in this new relationship where you are right now with yourself and the kids. So it seems like you're really at a good place now with what you've done so far. So I think you'll get to this good place in the future. I also want to mention, don't hesitate to use couples counseling. If you get to some hard spots and there's persisting tension, that you start feeling like you're not working together, and that your relationship's getting disrupted.
Okay.
And couples counseling can be a really good backup. Even if you go 2 or 3 times, just say, we're dealing with an ex with this set of behavior, and, just help us talk it through and give us some pointers.
Yeah. And it takes a while. Yeah, it does. That's why I reached out to the program, because a lot of people are going through it and they don't know what to do. And so I just wanted to put the word out there and get some help, and they can hear me out my story, and they can use it, to their advantage and get them help.
Yeah. I really appreciate, Bill, your time. And, Guillermo, I know that what you're going through is difficult. But I also, in my own experiences with things like this, I've taken a lot of solace from the fact that other people are going through it as well, and other people have survived it as well. And that has always helped me get relief from that feeling, that isolated place where you feel like you're just in a vortex and you're the only person who knows what's going on. Just know that there are other people who've experienced this as well, and that you're not alone. So I'm really glad that you're here. And I would share that message with all of our listeners. If you are going through something similar to what's been described here, you're not alone. So I'm really honored that you decided to share your story with us.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Bill, I feel really lucky that we got a chance to benefit from some of your wisdom.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be on. And again, I also support that Guillermo, excellent for reaching out, getting help, and making good use of it.
You can check out Bill's work and resources at the High Conflict Institute. We'll include links in the show notes. That's all for this episode, but please join us on today's Slate Plus Quick Fix. We're starting a special project where our producer, Rosie Belson, puts a piece of advice to the test for a whole month to see if it really works. It's kind of like a human guinea pig crossed with a happiness project. This month is all about using novelty as a way to be present and more intentional with how you spend your time.
It's January 1st. I am standing outside by the lake. It is snowing, and I cannot think of a better way to kick off this year and this month's challenge than to do something I've always wanted to do, which is the New Year's polar plunge.
Are you ready? 1, 2. Oh my goodness! Oh, that was so fun! Oh, wow! Chilly, chilly, chilly!
You can hear that today, and if you want to join for the experiment, Rosie will be testing sleep hacks next month. If you aren't already a Slate Plus member, you can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of the How To show page, or visit slate.com/how-to-plus to get access wherever you listen. We'll see you there. Do you have a relationship dilemma or any other problem? Send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001 and we might have you on the show. And if you like what you heard today, please give us a rating and a review and tell a friend. That helps us help more people. How To is produced by Rosie Belson with Kevin Bendis, Joel Meyer is senior editor, and Derek John is executive producer. Merritt Jacob is senior technical director and composed our theme music. Charles Duhigg created the show. Courtney Martin is my co-host, and I'm Carvell Wallace. Thanks for listening.